It's Jess. If you're new here, I'm a certified professional canine nutritionist, raw nutrition certified for dogs and cats, a holistic pet health coach, the founder of Wild Wellness Pet, and the host of the Pet Parenting Reset podcast that you're listening to right now, where every pet deserves the absolute best, and every pet parent is welcome. Learn from the best holistic and integrative experts in veterinary medicine and nutrition every Tuesday right here on this podcast. Or get individualized help with your pet through one-on-one consultations and take a deep dive into the root cause with the Wild Wellness Bioenergetics at-home testing kit. It's time to rethink how we raise our pets, a reset to naturally healthy dogs and cats. If you've been feeling like there has to be something more, something better, a better way to raise healthier pets, welcome to the Pet Parenting Reset. Welcome back, pet parent. Today is going to be just a fun episode, I think, because I have Heather Enajibi here with me today with Canine and Feline Natural. And first of all, Heather, congratulations on getting your CPCN.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited, and I know you've got it as well. So,
The thing with the CPCN that I tell people all the time, like anybody that asks me if they should get it, of course I'm like, yes, of course. I want this information out there.
Mhm.
But I'm like, people who actually are trying to use this information professionally, I'm like, just understand that you are going to go through a roller coaster of pulling your hair out. Why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to feed a dog? And then, oh gosh, this is easy. Why we don't need to be we don't need to be dealing with all of this. This is easy. Just follow nature. And you're just going to go through this roller coaster.
Yeah, I have to say, I got really bogged down in vitamins and minerals. I started this journey 20 years ago with raw feeding and making my own, not knowing what I was doing, but I had a dog with severe issues. So I just literally pulling dandelion greens and lamb's quarters out of my own yard, burdock root from the Asian grocery, buying from the butcher, just kind of doing it myself. So, I kept getting afraid of not being able to remember so much of this, but then kind of going back to, wait a minute, so much of this is just common sense. And how often do you and I eat complete and balanced on a daily basis? And, so much of it is common sense. I just thought it was really great for me, there was a lot of confirmation in what I've already seen throughout my life, and just, being able to be official about it now.
Right. I think, and it is interesting because it only really matters if on a professional level, we're trying to meet AFCO or FEDIF or NRC, like if we're trying to meet these minimum levels of nutrient profiles for, which, the formulators at Canine and Feline Natural are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where it matters, but also like I keep having to remind myself that this is based on like all of this information that we think we know about what dogs and cats need is really based on synthetics and studies with and not only studies with synthetics, but studies with synthetics in a vacuum. And it's like when we're feeding real food, it's like we just let nature do all the work and really don't have to think about it that much.
Yeah, for sure. However, at the end of it, I also realized I'm really fortunate that I get to hit the easy button. Working for Canine and Feline Natural, I know the work and the care and I have so much trust in them and what they do, that I was like, I get to just, and it's just so nice to hit the easy button because not everybody has the time or the desire to make their food. And just knowing that I can feel so good about what's coming out of New Zealand and, like you mentioned, our formulators, they are so careful and so educated. And, it's nice that I've got this knowledge, but I don't have to use it in my own feeding.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tie this together really quickly and we're going to move forward. But I had Jeff Bowers on the podcast not too long ago. We were talking about toe tonics, which this is not an advertisement whatsoever. I just happen to really, really love Totonics, and, I do recommend it a lot, but he was the original formulator for
Those are
Canine Feline Naturals,
yeah.
and so for anybody who's interested in really doing a deep dive on the history, I would say go check out that episode, when you're done with this one, but I would love to hear, so you've already told me a little bit that, like,
Mhm.
you really started this journey 20 years ago. You have had at least 1 dog, but I know multiple now that you have had to work with to
Mhm.
help get them to a better place where they're actually healthy and they have a quality of life.
Yeah.
What has that road looked like for you? How long have you like, how did it bring you to Canine
Yeah.
Naturals?
Yeah. So I 20 plus years ago, I was with a rescue and I accidentally ended up owning the rescue. Long, complicated story, but my first rescue dog out of that, Nina, she was allergic to everything. And I was giving her cortisone shots because that was the protocol. And she ended up with Cushing's. And I'm sure it was from the repeated cortisone use. I got her when she was 5, and she'd already had probably 4 years of steady cortisone. I did it for another year or so, not knowing better because, none of us can do better until we've kind of run into these situations. You're not born with this knowledge. And so I started to learn with Nina, and that's when I started to build her own diet because I realized I couldn't find a commercial food at least 20 years ago that she didn't react to. But I did discover I could make it my own way. But I did treat her conventionally for the Cushing's, and she didn't live very much longer. I This last May, I took in a hospice foster with Cushing, so I'm kind of having a full circle moment now. And I consulted with Chelsea Kent because she's one of my favorite people in the industry and the smartest person I know. So what we decided to do was 75% canine diet, the Hokkien beef specifically, and 25% of the kefir, however you want to say that word. Every time I think I get it right, I get it wrong. And then followed the Doctor's Marsden's protocol of 4 marvels. And we have turned this girl around. I mean, she's still somewhere between 13 and 15. And, we're still technically hospice, but to see what I could do with alternative diets for a very horrific illness that is just heartbreaking to watch and to see her
It
turn
is.
so quickly, it just reaffirmed with me kind of what we're doing and how much sourcing matters. And, if all disease stems from inflammation and an unhealthy gut, like let's reduce this inflammation in her body. Let's heal her gut. And it wasn't that hard to do. I think it's just, you just got to know the right people to talk to or the right products to pick. But, that's the beauty of podcasts like this, that people can listen and learn from other people's experience. It took me so long to get here. But that is how I ended up with Canine 10 years ago, was because through the rescue world, I was getting food donated from other companies and I got to know all the people. And I was so thrilled to be able to come to Canine. And yeah, Jeff is phenomenal. Our founder, Shane, who's kind of the number 2 in the company, is one of my favorite humans on the planet. Can't wait to see him in Global next week. And Totonics is in every bowl with Rose now. I love that product. I think it's phenomenal. And there again, just reducing inflammation. That's just kind of my mission with her. And
Yeah.
uh, that's how I'm doing it. So yeah, Totonics, phenomenal. Jeff's brain, phenomenal.
I know, right? Um, well, you know, I like to go on tangents.
I'm a rabbit hole girl. Let's go.
I so yeah, and I also I say this so often in so many of the podcasts that I put out, but it's so true. I go through these phases where I feel like the universe is bringing like one thing to me from so many different directions at one time that I'm like, this is what I need to be talking about right now.
Yeah.
And I was actually I had to go run some errands before recording this podcast with you. I was listening to a new podcast. I, forgive me, everyone. I used to, like, 20 years ago, I was not a fan of Joe Rogan. Like, I did not like him with a passion. And today I I can't wait for his next podcast to drop.
Okay.
But he had Brigham Bueller on, who he's been on the podcast many times. He's the founder of Ways to Well, and talking about peptides, but more generally talking about the capture of the pharmaceutical industry and how kind of twofold that we are really in like our healthcare care system is a sick care system, and we don't, but even so, we don't even really have a healthcare or even really a sick care system. We have a system that is completely pharmaceutical based, that is just, okay, what is the next pill that I can give you
Mm-hmm.
to quote unquote make you feel better? And that's really all we're doing, and that has trickled down so far into the veterinary industry as well, unfortunately. Not to say that there aren't some really amazing veterinarians out there. There still are some really amazing veterinarians out there, but I was doing a pre-podcast chat with a veterinarian yesterday, um, and I always like to, just talk to people to kind of get a sense of who they are before we actually record, because now I know what I can talk to you about and what I can't
Yeah.
talk to you about, kind of thing. And um and to make sure that we can even have a conversation. Like
Yeah.
I'm almost 5 years into this now, so I've realized that you can't have a conversation with everybody.
Sure.
But, he was also bringing up the fact that when you go into corporate medicine,
Mhm.
and the veterinary industry is completely bought up. I mean, almost completely bought up.
Yeah.
Well over 50%
Mhm.
of, I think, the veterinary practices in the country right now are corporate owned, especially when we include, like, emergency and urgent care vets. And, like, there's no relationship there.
Mhm.
But not just, like, there's no relationship with you and the doctor, but there's no relationship between a patient and the doctor. So, like, if we actually look at your dog or your cat
Mhm.
as the patient, because
Right.
they have no relationship with
Mm.
the person who's supposed to be giving them care.
Yeah.
And that is pretty detrimental,
Mhm.
overall, which is why, all of that to say,
Yeah.
I think this is why people like you and I spend so much time talking about nutrition,
Mhm.
because it is so foundational, and it is something that you can do and change in your home today
Yeah.
with really not even having to do too much
Mhm.
research anymore.
Mhm.
Like, you can go and buy a commercially available, biologically appropriate food for your dog or your cat
Yeah.
and make a huge like, if you have a dog with Cushing's, right, you may not get everywhere you wanna be
Mhm.
with just changing the diet,
Yeah.
but it's gonna help a ton, and it's really gonna give you, like, that starting place. And
Mm.
I just took over the conversation, I'm sorry, but I'm
Oh, girl.
curious, like,
Yes.
that seems to be what when I talk to you, like,
Yeah.
that's kind of your focus.
Yeah. Yeah, nutrition and sourcing, that was that came up with the feed reel. uh,
Mhm.
at the end of it, you build the diet for your final, and
Yeah.
I have become so suspicious of sourcing, um, because I work for a New Zealand company, and I've learned a lot about US manufacturing, US sourcing, factory farms, and it was really, really hard to make that final diet for me, knowing what I know, because it wasn't easy to find everything I needed that I trusted the
Mhm.
sourcing of. Some of it was great. I was like, oh, I feel really great about where I got this pork loin from, or this, but some of it I was just like, oh, it felt sketchy to me, which was hard. And that's one of the reasons I'm so proud to work for Canine and Feline Naturals, because of that New Zealand sourcing. I mean, I know our people are so educated and care so much, but it's also, we're starting from this foundation of this amazing country. And whenever I talk about us, I sound very obsessive towards New Zealanders, and we're actually going there next month. And they worry about me coming because I'm such a fan. Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about that difference, because I know, like,
Yeah.
when I make food, or
Mhm.
even when I did, because I really have never been much of a DIY
Mhm.
feeder. That's not the season of life that I'm in, and um, sourcing is hard. And I
Mhm.
feel for people that are trying to source, especially the ones that are trying to do things as inexpensively as possible because
Yeah.
the sourcing isn't gonna be great.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, granted, like, a fed dog is better than a starving dog, right?
Yeah.
But, that sourcing does matter, and I know when I was having to make the food at the end of the course as
Yeah.
well, I'm like, like, the organ meats and that I'm like, these are I have no idea where these are actually coming
Oh.
from. Like, that they're not easy
Mhm.
to find really good sources of, individually. I don't unless you have a relationship with a farmer or a co-op of farmers
Yeah.
that you're comfortable with, like, it's hard.
Mhm. It is. It's really hard, and, when you go to get the good sourcing, it's quite expensive. You can find very cheap meat, but say the more you learn, the more worried you get. And with New Zealand, you just don't have to worry about that. It's no hormones, no antibiotics, no GMOs in anything. In 2016, the FDA or USDA, FDA changed the definition of grass fed. They've removed the definition. So grass fed could be 1 day. And that, an animal that is finished on a feedlot, much higher levels of omega-6s, much more saturated fat, higher bacterial count. It's awful what happens in that meat to get that corn-fed thing that we like. When you're in New Zealand, everything is very lean because these animals are 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised, rotational grazing. There's all these different terms for it, because even grass-finished isn't accurate because they are rotational grazing on kale, Brussels sprouts. It varies depending on the time of the year. So these meats are very, very different. And I am also a really strong believer in cortisol levels. And, if that animal was stressed and full of fear, I think it does definitely change the meat. And that's what we're feeding our companion animals. So, I just feel so good about what's coming out of New Zealand, the way they do it, that it is just one bad day. When we were there last time, the rest of the team watched us slaughter. I did back out because I am I'm a little,
Yeah.
but I backed out. But our CEO was just he wanted us to understand. We're so far removed away from our food chain that he really wanted the team to understand how much different it is there because of the in 1999 the New Zealand government made all animals sentient beings by law. So they acknowledge that they have feelings, and the five freedoms are big pillars of what they're doing there in New Zealand. So I just feel like I've got such an easy button getting everything out of New Zealand. know? And for our own food, you can frequently find New Zealand meats at Trader Joe's. They will frequently have ground beef or ground lamb. So if somebody out
Mhm.
there is looking to get some of that amazing meat, but that's part of the anti-inflammatory that I always kind of focus on is it starts if your diet is 85 to 95% meat, you want to make sure that that meat is impeccable, and that's
Mhm.
something that entire country can offer us. So it's a really nice, like I say, an easy button to push that it's all put together for you.
So, this is a harder question,
Yeah.
but I am curious, and this is just us, this is
Yeah.
just our opinions.
Uh-huh.
Um, one of the things that I recently spoke to somebody about on the podcast was sustainability,
Mhm.
and it's a big topic,
Mhm.
and, like, it's a really big topic, and, like, how we certainly can't expect even though they have a very large population like, animal population in New Zealand, it's a very small country. We
Mhm.
can't expect them to be able to feed the world, especially if we're looking at the human population and the animal population. Um, Granted, it's not the only food available. There's a lot of food out there, but with it being I mean, I think pretty well everyone agrees that they have some of the best food in the
Mhm.
world.
Yeah.
They also can't feed the world.
They do. They do aspire to be the world's farm, though. I've
Do
heard that
they?
times. And there is, I think, latest figure I think I heard was 4 sheep to every human in New
Mhm.
Zealand. So I mean, it is. There's a lot of wide open spaces. And have you been?
No, I want to so badly. Oh my
You
god.
have to go. It's so different. It's farms. It's just
Yeah.
family farms. And just, you go for a hike and you just randomly walk upon some sheep or some cow it's just the strangest thing because I'm in Seattle. So, things like that just don't happen here, you know.
No, and they
So
don't.
I don't think
No.
there's any shortage, I guess, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying, at least not at this point. I mean, who knows where things go. But on that sustainability, I'm so proud. We just got our certified B status. So we're going to be at Global next week, kind of announcing it, which is a really big journey that we've been on for a few years. And less than 10% of companies that go for that get it. So we're really, really proud of our sustainability practices.
Mhm.
Um, doing everything we can.
Can you tell everybody what that entails, being a B status corporation?
Yeah, I wish I had the definition up, but I don't. But it's basically you're a for-profit company for good. And there's many different areas that you can focus on, but it's independently audited. So it's not like we just tell somebody, hey, we're doing all the right things. We have to prove it and prove it all the time. But that means they're doing things that are good for the environment, good for the world at large, good for their employees. They're just, it's a really important certification that I need to get the talking points down, Jessica, because it was a big deal, and it took us, like I say,
Yeah.
several years to get. Um,
Mhm.
and we were also the first New Zealand company that was accredited through the Pet Sustainability Coalition. So, yeah, I think your main question there was kind of about the viability of how much meat can the world, and I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but there's certainly no shortage.
Well, and I think it's a really good testament to how, I mean, here we have to have a word for it here in the
Mhm.
States, right? Because of course my dog is like, "Yes." Because it really sucks, I think, that we can't have an apple and an apple grown with poison. Like the
Mhm.
organic apple has to go through all the hoops, right, to be labeled organic when that should just be the apple,
Yeah.
and then the other should have to be the one, like, disclosing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. It really sucks, and I think that's why we're at this point where we're talking about regenerative agriculture. We have to put a name to how
Yeah.
how plants and animals should be raised as
Yeah.
far as, like, actually working with the earth and not against it,
Mhm.
creating healthy topsoil versus killing all of the topsoil, and, um, so I it sounds to me like New Zealand is kind of that case study that
Mhm.
shows we're not making all of this up, like, this actually will save the world if we just did this.
We follow it. Yeah, and it's they have the benefit of being an island nation, so they're really protected in
Mhm.
ways that, for example, I don't think North America could turn a lot of this around now. It's kind of it's the genie's out of the bottle, cat's out of the bag,
Yeah,
whatever, you want to talk about. It's difficult to find this kind of sourcing where New Zealand's done a beautiful job of sort of protecting their biosecurity measures are very, very tough. A few years ago, I went to a bird sanctuary island there, and your bag had to be fully searched because they were so fearful of something coming in. Like if you had food in your bag, what could that contain? What could
mhm.
it's every step you go there is they're so careful and it's just it's amazing and it'd be tough for other countries to do in that way but it's being an island nation they're just they're protected.
Yeah. I'm just over here wondering, like, what you have to do to be able to, like, go live there.
Yeah.
How would that work?
I know. I know. I've thought about it. I would probably get island fever, but I do love the
Yeah.
ability to go visit. But yeah, it's gorgeous. It's so, and the people are so kind, and yeah, just happy animals everywhere.
Yeah. That sounds so idyllic.
Yeah.
And to think that it actually exists is like, wow. I know so Dr. Katie Woodley, she oh, don't quote me on this, but I think she actually went to veterinary school there.
At Massey
And
University, probably.
probably,
Mm,
I don't
mhm,
remember off the top of my head, but, it definitely like, the way, because she has told me about it for years, and I'm
mm.
like, "Yeah, New Zealand sounds absolutely amazing."
It is.
I
It
don't know
is.
why she ever left.
Yeah.
Um, but, okay, so with canine and feline natural, can you just tell me a little bit about, because
Yeah.
so it's been around for a while,
This is
and
our
this is one of the yeah, this is one of the things that I have been trying to be a little bit more intentional about with the podcast
Mm,
is that, it's really great and wonderful to bring on the new companies and every time new shiny object comes out to be like, "Ooh, that's amazing," right? But to go back to, there aren't many, but
mhm,
these handful of companies that have actually been around for a while who started out doing it right and are still
yeah,
doing it right, like, that's a hard thing to find, and so being able to give voice to that
yeah,
has been important to me lately, so
thank you.
I really
I
want
appreciate the opportunity then to talk about it.
I really wanna hear about, like, what is the mission
Yeah.
and what it is that Canine and Feline Naturals has to offer.
Yeah. So we've been around since 2006. Jeff Bowers, founder. He was a British police, canine police officer. I'm going to probably mess up the story, but I think he told it a little bit on his episode with you.
Yeah.
But for a police officer and their canine partner, there is no stronger relationship, and he wanted to do right by them. So, really shortening that story, he ended up moving to New Zealand, and then he decided to build this diet, truly species appropriate diet, learning a lot from the gray wolves, and kind of pulling a lot of that information and science down into feeding his dogs. And Canine Natural was born. And then shortly after, I think 3 years later, Feline Natural was born because obligate carnivores, they needed even more, So very, very high meat. In fact, in this last year, we've actually bumped up our meat content from 90 to 94%. So we went even higher in the last year. Our feline diet is 98.5 to 99.5% meat. Again, obligate carnivores,
Wow,
they don't
yeah.
eat anything else. And all of those meats sourced from New Zealand. We also have Greenland mussels in all of our diets, which, Greenland mussels have over 90 different fatty acids, a true superfood. Have that in all of our diets. And then tripe, which is, I call tripe magic because I've just seen what it can do for so many dogs' guts. And, when we were talking about grass fed, grass finished, or 100% pasture raised, when you're feeding organ meats, like we were talking about organ meats and the feed real, it really matters for those organs. Is that animal pump full of antibiotics and hormones and corn and soy? And, it's like the organs specifically need to be grass finished. And to know that, I don't have to worry about that because our organ meat, we're, up to 40% organ meats in some of our diets, like really high organ content in there. And just kind of doing it the way it should be done, high meat. And that's what our carnivores need. We are coming out with a new product right now. We're making quite a departure. I'm looking at it like it's a ladder of nutrition. So we are opening up a new rung. We are coming out with a dry food. But I think we did it right. 40% protein, absolutely no meals. So there's no rendered meals in this food. First aid ingredients are meat, and that's really because what we know is that 80% of the people are still feeding kibble.
Mhm.
let's get them on this journey. Because I think once they get on that journey, once you start to learn, I mean, it was true for me. I'm sure it was true for you. Once you started to learn, it just got so exciting. You know, and keeping everything low carb and low starch and low, just trying to do your best for them. So I'm actually really excited to introduce new people to our brand because I think that'll open a door for us. And then I can talk about my favorite freeze drieds.
Well, it is very interesting to talk about, the vast majority of people in the United States are still feeding a kibble product, whether it is exclusive or, a hybrid
Mhm,
diet. I think there's still a pretty large percentage that is exclusive,
mhm,
and to be able to meet those people it's not an easy thing to do when we know what we know, right? Like, when we realize, especially with cats,
mhm.
that, and I know some dog people, like, get kind of frustrated with me when I
No.
say things like this, but I'm like, if I could focus more on cats, like, I would. Like,
Mhm.
they need it, like you just said, they need it even more. Like, our dogs need it, but
Yeah.
boy, do our cats need it even more.
Yeah.
And it's harder.
Yeah.
It's harder to transition a cat. I think it's harder to transition a cat parent.
Mhm.
Um, we have this, like, really weird thing in our society where we think cats are easy pets, and I think they're harder. I think they are way harder than dogs. And I've
Yeah.
had a lot more cats than I've had dogs, and I think they are way harder than dogs, and Jay and Adrian wanna, like, smack me upside the head every time I say that, but it is the truth.
But they're also smaller animals. So I'm really passionate about that because it doesn't cost as much to feed them right as it does.
Yeah.
My dogs are 60 and 80 pounds. So, when you're talking about a 12, 15-pound animal, and I know that the big hump is getting them to eat it or getting the owner to buy it in the first place, of course. But I just think I'm so passionate about getting the cats on an appropriate diet because these expensive conditions that they keep ending up with are really, it's the diet. It's, with dogs, it can be so many things, and you're taking your dog for walks and you're walking on land that may have been treated with, there's just so many things. But say you've got a house cat and
Mhm.
they end up with kidney disease or diabetes, or, it's like you can control so much in that, in your home, and it doesn't cost that much. And I think there is that thought that you don't need to or it doesn't matter. And then I hear about, my vet bill was $600. It's like, oh, what you could have done with that $600,
Mhm.
to get a diabetes
Yeah.
diagnosis or,
Yeah, no, I'd be happy with a $600 vet bill, honestly. Like, I have had
no,
um,
these days.
I have spent so much money on my cats in the past. Granted, like, most of the cats that I have had, I the first half of their life,
Mhm.
they spent with me, like, very conventionally raised,
Mm.
and I sadly only have 1 kitty cat left right
Yeah.
now. My
Are you
baby
looking at
boy.
her now? Or him?
I know, my little 17-year-old baby. Um, but I have had cats in well, I had a cat in, um, the emergency clinic for nearly a week, cost me over 10 grand. Though actually the cat that I have right now, that he is still with me, he had to have, a perineal urethrostomy surgery, so I had to unblock him once, which was not
Mhm.
cheap, and then to have the surgery was like 5 grand,
Mhm.
and, he I it's a crazy story, like, he actually died under anesthesia and was brought back, and it took me, like, over a month to get him to learn to walk again, and he can't see anymore. The brain damage that he had
Yeah.
caused his eyes physically are in perfect shape, but he can't, just with the swelling on the brain, he can't, he lost the ability to see. And it has been I have spent so much money on cats in my life. I'm like, "A $600 bill sounds amazing."
You're right, I'm still paying off my last one. Yeah, but and I always just I encourage people to think about it that way, almost like it's a payment plan
Yeah.
at the pet store. You go into your pet store, you buy the appropriate diet or make the appropriate diet. And yeah, I know it can be a real big journey getting a cat to eat appropriate. And we've got a phenomenal can, that is that same freeze-dried recipe. We've just added water and cooked it, so no gelling agents. So, I know a lot of cats do better
Mhm.
with a canned product.
They
And
do.
obviously I want 80% moisture in every cat's mouth all the time,
Yeah, yeah.
But I just you could avoid so many things just by doing
Mhm,
that. Yeah, and I know growing up, we lost a lot of boy cats because kibble, you know?
mhm.
Um,
Well, and the thing is it's really interesting and things I'm thinking of, like, while you're talking about cats
mm,
is that they are smaller
mm,
and our homes are very toxic for them, but they w one of the things that we're noticing right now with, what I think is being called spay and neuter syndrome, like, it's really affecting dogs,
mhm,
and it doesn't really seem to be affecting cats. Obviously, they're 2 different species, but
mhm,
it's interesting that, like, even the toxic environment in our home seems to be affecting dogs and cats a little differently as
mhm,
well, because cats don't get outside to off gas, typically speaking, like, some cats do, but most cats don't, whereas dogs can get outside to off gas, and they clean themselves a lot more than dogs do, so they're ingesting chemicals if they're walking on, chemicals that you just put on the floor or on the counters or whatever, and I'm sure it is I know it is affecting them, but it doesn't quite seem to be affecting them in the same way that it is affecting our dogs, and I wonder like, they just have very different metabolic pathways, and I mean,
mhm,
some are the same, but they also have different metabolic pathways, and
yeah,
I'm wondering, like yeah, it is interesting how much more we can still do with our cats
yeah,
just by switching the diet.
yeah, and again, I just think it's when it's a smaller animal, it's more affordable.
Mhm.
And
It
and I
is.
well, like I'm reading about kind of adoption rates and people living in cities and opting for cats and I just think it's something that we can control. There's so much we can't control, like you were mentioning
Mhm.
offices and we can certainly control cleaning products in our own home, but
Yeah.
if you're taking them outside of your home, you've kind of lost that control.
Mhm.
But there's so much we can do, and diet is such a the biggest, I think, component to all of that. Because even if they have genetic issues or hormonal issues, you can support so much of it through food. And
Yeah.
I just want people to know more and do more. And I
Mhm.
think everybody wants to. Nobody I've never met the person that's like, I just don't care if my animal gets sick.
Yeah.
I am sure
Right.
that person exists, never met him. It's like everybody wants to do better. It's just that marketing and advertising for many, many years
Yeah.
is really, don't change the protein. Kibble cleans teeth. All these things that we've heard for so long that were just advertising campaigns back in the day, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
They are
yes.
advertising campaigns. It really, really sucks. Um, so, okay, you mentioned freeze-dried. Tell me what you love about freeze-dried.
Well, the convenience is the big thing, of course, but also that it's been able to keep like, we didn't have to add with the kibble, we had to add some carbs to hold it together, where with the freeze-dried, we didn't have to do that, and coming from New Zealand, we don't have to HPP or irradiate any of those things, just test and hold, so, I would say that our freeze-dried is one of the least processed, out there, which I think is really important. Chelsea can't can Wait, she and I can talk about HPP for a while. And her store, she doesn't carry a lot of brands, and it's because she asks a lot of questions, and not everybody wants to give those answers. So I've always been really proud that we've passed her tests. You
Mhm.
know? um, but yeah, and just add water, add bone broth, add goat's milk, add, as your moisture. And it's got the convenience of kibble, but
Mhm.
all those nutrients. So that's what I love about it. In fact, when I first started working here, we still had our frozen raw diet, which I absolutely loved. But, coming from New Zealand, that's a really tough thing to maintain and compete with American companies that don't have to travel halfway across the world. So
Yeah, true.
I loved our raw food, loved it. But I also really loved getting that drawer in my fridge back. That was my defrost drawer, you know? So
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of having my whole fridge back, except for goat's milk and fish jiggles and all the other, liquids that I have in there for them. But the
Yeah.
base diet doesn't have to be in the fridge anymore or the freezer. So
Yeah, I have most of my fridge is pet food and various things to go with pet food. And, I had to buy I had to buy a chest freezer
Mhm.
'cause
Mhm.
there's no way, I just can't,
Yeah.
and I'm that person that buy I don't go to the store every week. I buy for months at a time because I don't wanna go to the store
Tired.
constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, yeah, it's that chest freezer gets is worth its weight in gold,
Yeah.
I think, because I just can't I liter I don't know what I would do without it. Even getting down to 1 chest freezer was hard. When I moved, I had the fridge and freezer in my house, which
Mhm.
s had enough in it to, like, get me through the week or whatever at a time. And then in my garage, I had a chest freezer and I had another fridge and freezer.
Mhm. Yeah. I had actually just bought a new chest freezer when we discontinued our frozen raw, and
Oh, yeah.
I remember just being like, "Oh, no." But, for my own personal diet, I've started, this is not an ad, but Butcher Box, which has amazingly sourced meats, and so it's
Yeah,
now full of food for me. But,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
the convenience of freeze-dried really, matched with the nutrition is
Mhm.
really amazing. And, we've got a 4-pound bag and an 8-pound bag of freeze-dried. So we're, your RV travelers, your dog show people, we've got a phenomenal option for them with
Mhm.
with our large bags.
It makes a difference,
Yeah.
really, it does. So, I know, when we talked before,
Mhm.
you were talking about and you talked a little bit about the dog that you have, the foster that you
Yeah.
have right now, but, um, how I just you mentioned how impactful diet has been,
Mhm.
but this has been a long journey for you.
Mhm.
Um, I'd really love to hear any other stories that you have about how nutrition has impacted any of the
Yeah.
animals in your life, um, or even, like, client testimony, like, literally anything.
Well, I mean, there's so many, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah,
running the rescue. I've fostered a lot of dogs or adopted a lot of dogs, and typically, the kind of rescue we were predominantly like pit bulls or seniors. So we were taking in some hard cases with a lot of stress, um, and I can see the difference. I mean, I wish this was, I don't know if there's a way, maybe on your show notes, I've got a great slide showing a 3-week difference in Rose, what we did
yeah,
for her in 3 weeks. And it's just phenomenal. And the eyes clearing up, the ears clearing up, the paws, the smell. Oh, when I got Rose, I can't. I feel like I can still smell that,
yeah.
because she was so yeasty and so, oh, she was so uncomfortable. It was hard to see. It was really, really hard to see. And then just to see food, Whole Foods, and, one Chinese supplement for marbles, which was $20 a month. Just to to turn this around. But yeah, I mean, I've had so many dogs through my house in my life, and um, they all benefit. I've never seen anybody not benefit from putting better food in them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, sorry, I'm like not certain stories or, right now I'm focused on Rose, of course, because she's the dog in front of me. But yeah, and then my other dog, Pedro, he got hit by a car when he was a puppy. That's how he ended up with us because the person had decided not to pay for the surgery. So the vet said, sign him over. But he had 3 rounds of antibiotics in pretty short succession because he had three surgeries in a row. I mean, we had to change his water. Uh, that was a big thing that I learned. We were doing tap water and we just couldn't get him quite right. He still hives and, we gotten him pretty close. And then one day he fell in a friend's pool, which obviously is treated with chlorine and all kinds of stuff too. But then he had open wounds just from falling in the pool. And that really opened up something new for me. I was like, wait a minute. Even though, I'm in the Pacific Northwest and people think we've got good stuff here, I looked at the water and the water is terrible here. So, changing up his water really made a difference. There's just all kinds of things that you just don't think about, that really, really make a difference. And the antibiotic usage just repetitively, especially as a puppy, I think, really, really screwed him up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there,
I actually had somebody come up to me. I w- was at an event a few weeks ago, and I had it really caught me off guard, and I hate to say that because I feel like I should be more open and understanding. But it really caught me off guard because the majority of the people that I talked to, even in a setting that I'm not typically in, this was a pet sitters conference,
uh-huh.
um, are really, really open to the idea of what food can do for an animal. And I had somebody come up to me and she was like, I didn't want to ask this while you were on stage, but like, do you really believe all that stuff you're saying? Like literally, she was like,
Why would I say that?
is there even any proof that, real food can do this for animal? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
so many things ran through my head. And the only thing I knew to tell her was like, "Yes, I absolutely believe it, and if you really want, like, go buy the Forever Dog book because there's so many studies referenced," and that was, like, the first thing I could think of that I'm like, "Here is a compilation of so many studies," like, I don't know who could refute that.
Right.
Um, and but I was just like, "Wow." I I just haven't been exposed to that in so
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
But I know she's not alone, and I'm wondering how to get to those people.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I am looking at our new product sort of in that way. Like
Yeah.
this is how we're meeting them where they're at. Um, but yeah, I mean, and also I struggle with the common sense of that. I mean, you wouldn't feed your kid Cheerios 3 meals a day the rest of their you just very much agreeing. Yeah, no Cheerios,
Yes,
Wait,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't I know we're in the right industry for this. I don't know why people have that disconnect. And I mean, I genuinely think it's just many, many years of marketing. And also I hear all the time, when I was young, when I grew up, our dogs lived to 17. It's like, I think even then the cheap kibble was better. I
Mhm.
mean, things have changed a lot. And it might have been horse meat back then, but at least it was higher meat content. I don't know that to be a fact. I just, I think pre some of our regulations, there was probably just other meat in there, which
Uh,
served carnivores better,
yeah.
and also our world was different. The chemicals were different. Everything was different back then. So I get really frustrated when I do hear that, that my dog was on Purina, lived to be all our dogs, but it's like the world has changed and we all know better now. Like we know it's not good to feed ourselves processed all the time. So why do we think that that's okay for our companion animals that have short lifespans? I
Yeah.
They don't live long enough as is. I wanna do everything I can to extend that in every way I can, and I'm always learning. I don't pretend to know one fraction of what I need to know. You but I'm always learning and always seeing what works and hearing from other people. And I just think the more, and I realize that freeze dried is not a fresh food per se, but it's minimally processed with all of these great ingredients. And so that to me, I see that as such a great way to get people comfortable with it be-
Mhm.
and adding in some good stuff on top of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really struggle with people that just think that free feed, throw it in the bowl, and I don't know. I want to be more involved with my pets. I
Mhm.
love to see their faces when I give them a ratatouille. I love that stuff because they're, I don't have kids, they're my kids, So for me, it's all about how do food is love, and I want to, I want them to enjoy all of that. And that's something I can offer.
The dogs are going nuts. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Muting myself.
Did you beat this guy out there?
It's yes, like, my nephew is home and he's outside playing basketball, so that's a
Yes.
thing, but also my dog is not she doesn't really like any other animals,
Oh,
she tolerates
mhm.
some when she has to, and she's not a fan of my brother's dog at
Okay.
all, but my
Yes.
brother's dog is always right here with us, and she, like, it has gotten really bad lately, I don't even know why. I'm trying to figure out why, but, like, in the past couple of weeks, she is just anytime my brother's dog comes around, she is just, like, really going at it with barking at
Mhm.
and bless his heart, he just does not, like,
He's not reacting.
he doesn't get it, like,
Oh, your
he
brother. I think we're talking about.
my brother's dog
Okay.
is just, like, he will stop and pause, but,
Uh-huh.
like, it doesn't deter him from doing anything, he's just kind of like, "Dote de dote do." It's my dog is like, "I don't understand how you don't understand."
Right. I'm giving you very clear signals.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, yes, thank you. This is what she's doing right now because he got
Yeah.
off of the bench and now he wants to get back on the bench, so she's barking
Yeah.
at him again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but,
No, please.
yeah, so I think, thank you for coming on and discussing,
Yeah.
the brand and just chit-chatting about nutrition in general. I'm, uh, obviously, I don't think either one of us are kibble feeders, but I do have a very deep desire to help reach more people,
Mhm.
and I think, if we can try to bridge that gap with, like, what you're doing,
Yeah.
with the new product, then
Yeah.
trying to get people to
Yeah, I'm looking at it because I think it's
Yeah.
gonna start that conversation,
Yeah.
why is your protein that high? Why are you baking it in bone broth? Why are you adding kiwi fruit? Why is there green lip mussels? Let's start that conversation. Why does it matter that the first 8 or 9 ingredients are meat? Well, let's talk about it, why it matters. Let's talk about the heat that goes in there. It is a kibble product, but let's also talk about adding 20% fresh on top of that. Let's have those conversations. Let's start having fun with our food bowls. I don't know. I enjoy it. I like to add. I like to, our food is complete, but I like to have fun with it. Sometimes I just feel like an egg is going in. Sometimes I
Mhm.
feel that sardine is, I just and green lip mussels, they're falling out of the sky around here. Love a green lip mussel for
Yeah.
myself and them.
Oh, boy. Well, thank you so much for being here, Heather, and for, reminding us all about Canine and Feline Natural.
Thank you.
Where can people
Yeah.
find out more?
Uh,
Can I know more?
so we do have a where to buy on our website. Also, we have our own web store that you can buy from, as well as Amazon and Chewy. But we are not in big box stores. We are in boutiques. Your small neighborhood pet, which I'm really passionate about supporting them. We need them. These people know so much. You asked me for some examples of turning diets around. If you go into that small independent pet, I bet they have, this long string of great stories and names and pictures they can show you of how they've turned dogs around with diet. So
Mhm.
really passionate about your independent pet store. So please go there. Um, and maybe you want to edit this out, but we did create a 20% off coupon for anybody who wants to order from our website. And that would be Pet Reset 20 is what we did. So that's 20% off. And our website is us.caninefelinenatural.com. So I think you can put those in the show notes if you like. I just
Yeah.
didn't know if you wanted to do a 20% off discount.
Yeah. Pet Reset 20?
Yep.
Perfect. Yep, I will make sure that goes
Parenting
into
was too long, so we just shortened it.
It is. It is, I know. I
Oh, it's great.
usually
No, it's a great name, but for a coupon code, we needed to. But I do encourage, people to try it. If you're or DIY feeders, this big bag behind me is our freeze-dried tripe. Anybody who's dealt with raw tripe never wants to deal with it again. So that's a beautiful way to get a DIY.
No, no, they do not.
No, we hear that from stores all the time that people buy our tripe for DIY because they don't want to deal with the real.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. It's one of those smells that like you talked about earlier, you're not gonna forget that smell.
No, I got a
Yeah.
5-pound chub once donated to me, and I was so thrilled. And I thought I had a pretty strong stomach. I do not. Once I started chopping into that, I was just ill.
Yeah, I
But
bet.
the tripe smells like a petting zoo.
Mm, that's
Very.
a yeah. Yeah, good way to put it. Well, thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Heather. I
you for
appreciate
having me.
you. And guys, thank you for being here and for listening. Please give your pets some extra love from me and from Heather this week, and I will talk to you next week.
Awesome. Thank you.